And now let's go with this hot topic and I guess start topic for today. That is the aeternity governance. So for this, we have the luck of having with us Yanislav Malahov, who most of one maybe could know. There is aeternity's founder, but also Philipp, there is aeternity core developer, and somehow the father of the governance app, with the help of so many others, but has been very, very involved there. And we also have the luck of having here very long-time community members, such as Kryztoval and Justy, but also other members of the community whose voices, of course, count. And we are here to debate the shaping of the aeternity's on-chain governance, because as you all might know, it's on-chain complex on-chain governance is yet a not so explored field that has so many challenges. And it gets even trickier when you have miners to express decisions by the simple direction of their hash rate, but you also have a community that can submit proposal and makes votes with their voting power represented by the tokens. So it's quite exciting. We are gonna start. Please, Yanni, Kryztoval, and Josh, turn on your cameras and jump into the stage, please. Hey, we were planning on getting started. We have Yanni here. We wanted to get started, asking Yanni, when you envisioned the eternity, what was your take on chain governance?
Okay, so when eternity started, it was stated that governance was going to be a big thing in this blockchain, and that the voice of everyone was going to be heard, and we were going to move in a direction where the community was going to be very important, right? But since the very beginning, there were decisions that appeared to be taken by the core team. I'm sure they had a good reason to take those decisions, but mainly there seemed to be unilateral, because I didn't feel as a community member to be consulted or to be told that those decisions were going to be made. And even after the decisions were made, there was nothing to tell me why that decision was taken in that exact direction, raising the fees. I know the fees are really low, but raising the fees without telling the community why you were raising the fees seemed like a patch for a solution that wasn't broken yet. I don't know if you see the point.
Yeah, well, thanks, Kryztoval, but the question was first for Yanni, to say us how he envisioned the on-chain governance of aeternity. You already gave this view that is of course to be discussed, and we are all here for that. But let's, Yanni, please explain what was the take and what are the current status and plans.
Okay, I think I'm gonna switch off or leave my camera off, since somehow there's some issues with that. So let me tell you a little bit more about the history of eternity. So originally, when we wrote the white paper, we thought, what could we improve over existing smart contract platforms? And back then, there were not very many. And there was also this issue with the DAO on the Ethereum smart contract platform, where essentially a bug caused that the community split into two communities, and therefore afterwards there was a Ethereum Classic, the original Ethereum, and the new Vitalik Ethereum or Foundation Ethereum called as well. And there were many discussions all around the internet in different forums or on Reddit or on Bitcoin Talk, but it was not really clear which opinion was actually the leading one. And the foundation essentially took the opinion that this was a bug which needed to be fixed with a hard fork, and so they did. And many people afterwards were disagreeing. So in order to prevent this with eternity, we have created a voting system, which is essentially the start of the governance system, and we allow everybody who has a token to create votes. Others would call them also polls, and to vote on them as well as to delegate voting power to other people's accounts, so that in case they don't have the time to understand every vote or every, let's say, issue which is voted on, that they can delegate their voting power to a community member which they trust that they will do a good decision in their interest. And yeah, so with Eternity we have now this, it's on-chain, these votes. So far there has not been a lot of use for them, although we clearly showed also how, for example, one vote could work with the BRI vote, which was based on a kind of like an early version of this polling app or voting app. Does this answer your question, or do you have more questions?
Yeah, the question, Danny, was just like to introduce the panel and then spark like the interaction between you guys, like to have your vision, because it's always good to look to the past and see the context to understand all the actions and what we are doing here. That is great, because at the end of the day, governance, like you envision with a cryptographically secure and trusted way or trustless way with the governance app, should start by having these conversations. And I guess Kryztoval was making some statements about some decisions that make like unilaterally, but I was saying that sometimes it's good for the maturity and the speed of the network to do it like that. But then like having the reasons or having these spaces for debate, so we can all feel comfortable and work together for this community and like align visions that we have of a world in which money is controlled by us. We have privacy on our coins. We can transact freely with scalability and with privacy, and that's why we are here. So I don't know, Kryztoval, if you still feel that that sentiment that you were pointing out before.
Yeah, of course I do. It's the same thing. I mean, I understand the reasoning behind doing the governance in this way, and I totally understand having one general that dictates the direction when you're starting, because having all generals gets no battle wins. You need to have someone that directs the army so you can move toward the common objective. That's okay. I understand that. But we are not an army. And by that I mean we need to know why we're moving in that direction. I'm not asking for confirmation from me, but there was a white paper, there was some information that was supposed to be made according to that. When we jumped into the project, we were based on that, and then something changed, and it took too long for anyone, if ever, to tell us why that changed, how that changed, how was the analysis done to say that that had to change in this exact direction. And some of the changes were just, from my point of view, outside of the core team, just arbitrary. Like somehow someone woke up and said, okay, now we're going to do this way. And that happened.
Were these things decided prior of the launch of the governance app or afterwards?
Those were before.
Yeah,
before
exactly.
The governance app.
I mean, every decentralized system starts centralized.
For the record,
centralized. There's no decentralized system which starts decentralized from day one or day zero. Bitcoin was also kind of like solo mined by Satoshi at the beginning. He famously mined over 1 million Bitcoin, and people are fearing that he will come back and spend them all at once. Maybe not. This is definitely a possibility. And yeah, with the last hard fork, as far as I remember, the voting governance app became active, and from there on, essentially, this system is supposed to be used by the token holders. And since this was not used a lot, I think we can definitely say so, we decided to essentially bring this topic back into the Superhero League to discuss and really invite you all to participate more, since a vote without much participation is not worth a lot. And we need you all to be engaged and be using your tokens to delegate or to vote directly, and as well as also to create new topics there. So if you have an issue, Kryztoval, like for example, several things which you mentioned, unfortunately already in the past, so it's maybe difficult to vote about the past, but let's vote about the future. So what would you like to have? And I think there's a very solid base to essentially materialize the community's opinion on the Eternity blockchain with this tool, and now there's even more visibility on Superhero to be invited to use it more often.
I agree. I mean, sorry.
Sorry, Kryztoval. Philipp was trying to say something. Raise your hand.
Yes, I wanted to continue here from. So in the past, the thing that we did with Eternity were announced blog posts, and when there were some changes that the community would not have been happy about, they could have also in the past worked together with the miners to bring, reject the hard, so say, we're not going to update this, it's not in the community will not like this from the miner side. This would have always been possible in the past hard forks as well.
I would like to say, as Kryztoval was mentioning, I think in the future, the minimum fee is a thing that could be decided by governance app. And of course, maybe if demand is really high, then, we'll go with that.
In my world, the minimum fee idly gets decided through markets, meaning the more people do transactions, the higher the fee should go. And the more pressure there is, similar way how it's been done on Bitcoin and Ethereum as well. Of course, governance could be also used to have additional, let's say, factor, but I kind of think that the free market or whatever comes really close to a free market would be the best way to decide on the fee. But the block size, for example, this is something I think should be decided through governance.
Yeah, I agree. Let me clarify some things, because I may come out as too strong or attacking or being a troll sometimes, but I'm really happy that this is happening, that we are actually talking about what are the rules for the governance app to be taken into consideration. This was the main intention of the post the first time that I said it. What I was trying to get at was that we actually needed some rules that we could judge the voting happening in the network, so the foundation can take a look into things that actually matter. I didn't mean to make the voting about the proof of stake thing to be implemented. I just chose that topic because I knew that was a sensitive topic, and because I knew that no one would actually care that much to vote into that topic to be a 50-50 chance of losing that topic. So proving that if we don't move this forward, we don't have rules, we could actually have people make some votes that appear to be valid, but are not. So that was the main idea of that vote. The other part is, I agree with Yanni. The fees should be based on block size. On demand. If you have too many transactions that want to get into the block, you charge more for those transactions, and that's supply and demand, and that's the normal rules that apply in most blockchains. I agree with that. But the point was, it was changed, it was posted, I commented about it, I told people about it, and the post was hidden from public view. That happened. I didn't like it, but that has nothing to do with governance. And as Yanni said, that's something that's in the past.
Well, if the fees are set by market, shouldn't the minimum fee be like 1 ATO? But that's just so low.
Yeah, but right now that's not the case, and that's not an issue. if we have exceeding demand, we don't have a change for that. The fee is basically the same, I think.
I guess I can give some reasoning for the fee change that was in the past and why it has been decided like this, if you wish.
Go ahead, please, Philipp.
So for this concrete issue, there were some people trying to spam testnet, and we did see that it was trivially cheap for anybody to spam the testnet with gigabytes and terabytes of data. And it was an attack on early Eternity that was just out there. And miners did not start a fee market. They just included any transaction because they were using the default implementation. So a minimum fee was introduced to mitigate this early attack, to not spam the blockchain. And I think, as Yanni says, it should be governed by market. And as the community says it, and it's also my opinion, at some point when there's actually a marketplace for fees and miners start to implement a fee market in their decision which transactions to pick up and not just follow the default implementation, this should and can be rolled back.
Yeah,
Thank you, Philipp.
actually, this is a really interesting point with the block size, since this was also one of the main reasons why I kind of got upset with the Bitcoin community, since in Bitcoin land people were talking over many years and are probably still talking about essentially one line of code or one constant, which is in the source code, the block size, which got also reduced without any discussion by our early core developer early on in the Bitcoin era. Originally, there was no block size limits with Bitcoin. It was just implied or implicit by some other technical requirements. I mean, you can really lose lots of people in the community if such discussions are never ending, and with the on-chain governance system, or it's essentially allowing people to have a vote on-chain and for everybody else to be able to essentially prove or verify that this took place. I think this helps a lot to essentially avoid that such discussions take just too long. But I would definitely recommend to really start discussing first the issues. I think the forum is a good place, but also superhero.com discussions can take place in the comment sections and will probably be taking more place in the future. And yeah, I'm looking forward that everybody who has a coin can vote and will vote. And yeah, I mean, ideally I can also just disappear like Satoshi did, meaning I would like to make myself obsolete as a founder or figure, and I don't want to vote either, at least not at the beginning. I rather would like to observe it, since people are really looking at everything I say or I vote, and I'm also just a human and I also do mistakes, and it's really up to you guys, meaning the system is decentralized, it's open source, it's run by independent people who operate nodes or who are the mining pools or who mine to those mining pools. And I would really like to see the system thrive and become essentially adult and grown up and self-sustainable. So this would be my dream.
Great dream, Yanni.
That's awesome. And just to be clear, the Eternity Foundation is not voting with their tokens, or the Eternity.
I don't know, I cannot speak for the foundation, I can only speak for myself here.
I think currently there's no rule baked into which account can vote and which account cannot. And every account is counted the same, if it's an exchange, if it's the foundation or any user. But I think the accounts of the foundation are well known, and so any user can observe what accounts did vote, and if the foundation is the majority voting power in a certain poll, it will be known, and maybe the result can be interpreted in a different way by different users. Or somebody can very easily fork the governance app and make a version that excludes votes by foundation or any other party and make it public and say, this is the version of governance that excludes these accounts.
Actually, there was a fork of the governance app for the digital party in Uruguay. Would be also cool to know a little bit more about this, how this worked out, or whether it worked out and which coin they essentially used for this. But also additionally to this, of course, there will be many tokens on the Eternity blockchain. At least I hope so. And the governance app could be also reused for deciding on the issues or the things which are relevant for essentially this sub-token or the tokens on Eternity blockchain, not the Eternity blockchain itself. So there will be
the topic in the earlier Q&A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now that you mention exchanges, it's like, I mean, we all know that it's impossible and it's not desired to whitelist any address to vote. So there is only one thing we can do for exchanges not expressing will that is not legitimately theirs because they hold their coins. And it's very easy. Just run away of exchanges with your coins. So let's not leave them our AA tokens, and then it's easy. Then they won't have the ability to impose their individual will with coins that are not really possessed or owned by them. I mean, it drives me nuts how so many people and how many coins are still being held in exchanges. I just can't get it.
Also, it's anybody's own decision how to interpret it.
Sure.
They see the Gate.io or any other exchange's address there, they can see, hey, I don't trust it, or my decision for this poll is different.
Also, besides exchanges, pools have a lot of coins that I don't know if represent the will of the people before they get the money. And just dotting the I's and slashing the T's, that answer that Philipp gave about why the fees were raised, that's the answer that I needed to see in the forum explain that we had an attack on the testnet, we want to prevent that in the mainnet, and I would be fine with it. The issue was that it was hidden, it wasn't answered, and it took until now to know exactly that we had an attack on the testnet. I knew it was to prevent an attack of data, a flood of data into mainnet, but I didn't know why you were fearing that so far.
I didn't observe the forum post at the time, so I didn't know about it.
What would be other things you guys would like to vote on? This is, I think, very interesting for all of us.
Well, I guess the max supply inflation rate, that would, I kind of wish that wouldn't be able to be changed so we could be more like Bitcoin, but maybe it will be necessary for the security in the future, so I have mixed feelings about that.
I mean, it's like Bitcoin, that there is a maximum supply of the software, meaning absolute number which will not be surpassed in case people don't change the software. And the inflation rate, I mean, there are some rumors in the forums that it's really giant inflation rate, but it's really actually not that different comparison to Ethereum or Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin has steps, but if you grade the curve, it's quite similar. Every step into changing the economics or the amount of tokens is, of course, very, very controversial. So I would really like to see a big majority, or more than just a regular majority, to agree on this. Otherwise, we will probably see another hard fork of the kind of like the eternity maximalists and the other people who want to be more changing things.
I would really like to see a vote happening on some way to give nodes a way to make eternity for them. Because we know we have miners, and the miners can mine eternity if they mine a block. But there's nothing that pays the node managers or anyone that has a middleware. But if anyone's running an oracle, all the fees go to the block miner. Nothing goes to the one that's running the node.
If you're an Oracle operator, you can earn money by providing data. This is already possible. But for other things, I agree. It's a good point for discussion. Also, just raising the user, why are we here, is raising his hands, and sometimes he has.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Thank you, Philip. So maybe you can turn your camera on while we're here and your microphone unmuted so that you can ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Yanni. Hi, Kryztoval. Yeah, well, Kryztoval pretty much already asked my question, but I just want to elaborate on it. The governance app is working, and we understand the past is the past. However, going forward, we all need to know what are the rules that imply governance. How many votes are needed to be a successful vote? How many people are needed to vote? What's the percentage of votes that needs to be in favor before we accept the vote? So all those things are sort of up in the air at the moment. So it's governance, which is good, but there are no rules. So we can all vote, and it can be 100% vote, and we can say, okay, no, we're going to ignore it. Or we can have a 10% vote, and we're going to say we implement it. So that's my main thing. I don't mind the rules of the game, as long as I know the rules before I go and vote. I don't want to go and vote, and then afterwards sort of find out what the rules are.
So I think me and Yanni already answered this also in the forum. The thing about the current polling system is that there are no rules. The rules are to be made by whoever wants to make change. If anybody wants to make change, he can convince other users. And you can convince them by having a majority of tokens vote. If there's a 90% vote, as we said earlier, nobody can deny it has happened. The miners cannot, the Eternity Foundation, Eternity Anstalt cannot, any user cannot deny that it has happened, and that it's an important fact to take up on. But if you set very clear rules, those rules may also be used against the system and be used for bad things. So I guess there shouldn't be any rules, and any user wanting to make change has to market it, has to convince others, and especially yes.
But again, you say a user can lobby or make the rules, but again, how will the rules be made? Because if I vote on a rule, even if I get 100% vote, it doesn't say it needs to be implemented. Well, I don't know. How will the rules be made? That's what I'm trying to say. Really.
I think one way that you can do is if you have make a poll and you have 90% of tokens vote for 100% the same thing, nobody can ignore it, and then you can make a user-activated fork, for example, as happened on Bitcoin, when there was a 2x movement happening, where the users made the decisions and not the miners, and kind of forced the miners to upgrade to SegWit what they were wishing for. These kinds of things are not have to be decided by Yanni, not have to be decided by any central authority. It was just the users doing this, and I think we want to make the same thing with the governance system or the polling app.
I think general governance is very complex, and it's a little bit also misunderstood. With the voting app, which is out there, users, people who have tokens, who have AE coins, they can vote or delegate. But then, of course, it needs to be implemented, or somehow this vote needs to be manifested into software and needs to be run by node operators, and essentially this protocol changing thing. Then it needs to be mined by the miners. So the miners can fundamentally, of course, decide to mine something else or to change the software somehow. But then this will feed back again back to the users. So if the users are not happy, they will then essentially move away from the blockchain. So the miners are also incentivized to mine decisions which have been made by the majority of the users. Otherwise, they will lose their power, since people will just leave this blockchain. In case there's a hard fork, people who have coins, they will join the hard fork or the fork, which is more of what they believe in. I mean, the governance is really not so easy. I mean, there are different stakeholders in the system. They already exist now. They existed also before the launch of the app. But now, with this app, it's really visible how the people who have AE coins, how they think. And in case of the BRI vote, it was about 3/4, so about 75% were voting for doing it to essentially make the Eternity Crypto Foundation more sustainably funded, and in order to essentially maintain the protocol and help the software succeed. And this can change, of course, in the future. I would not like to get rid of essentially mining, meaning I don't believe in 100% proof of stake chains. I think I've been also quoted saying this earlier in the forums. It's again also a kind of like a market in force or in action, in case people start selling the coins, in case they're not happy with the governance decisions of other users or of the miners or of, and for example, also the exchanges, which I consider also community members, but of course very big community members.
Okay. No, thanks a lot, Johnny. I understand the answer, but this is actually sort of one point where I really don't mind a centralized decision where the team decides what the sort of voting rules are, and we go according to that. I actually don't want A to be forked, because I think it's best the way it is. So, I prefer, even if the team makes a decision and I don't like the decision, but I know what the rules are, rather than somebody disagreeing with it and then forking AE. So, but thanks for the answer.
But excuse me, I just wanted to point out as well as how the Brexit vote was happening, like 51% versus 49%, and just kind of like split the society as well. Not very nice to look at, I must say. I personally would prefer votes which are more than 50% into one direction, at least, let's say 60%. In case of the BRI app, our vote was about 75%, which is, for me, this is a clear yes. But even here, people would say that, or did say in the community, that essentially the team did this decision by themselves. Although, I think neither the foundation nor me personally nor other, let's say, founding members did really execute their voting rights in order to see how the community will vote. And we had a quite high percentage of participants in comparison to, let's say, other purely governance-related projects. We had about the same percentage, and we are not just purely governance-focused. We are generally a superior smart contract platform, or what we have built. That's my opinion.
Yeah, the problem I see currently with how you are going with the governance, and this is not trying to impose. I'm trying to tell you what the issues are going to be before they happen. They're trying to say that from the 100% of the tokens, which should be 100% of the people, they should exercise their vote. And this is impossible because you don't have the participation of every single mined coin that's in a pool. You don't have the participation of the breed. You don't have the participation of yourself, which you excluded yourself for the beginning, etc. So there's a lot of percentage that's not going to participate into the polling right now. So I think you should do something as the core team to consider the percentage that participates is based on how many people are actually active with their tokens. I know this is complicated. I know this is not something easy. I know this cannot be implemented overnight. This is just a suggestion of something that I see will be happening in the upcoming votes.
Yeah, I mean, also one way would be to essentially start an initial vote to essentially determine what is the percentage of people which should vote in order to essentially have a weight for this vote. But generally, this is a very flexible number. I'm not sure if really a threshold is needed here, or if it's really just the percentage of AE token holders. Meaning the more people vote, of course, the higher the weight of this whole vote is, and the higher the priority it should be that, the ecosystem makes this happen somehow. Sometimes, I mean, it's not always the foundation which is in charge for everything, and definitely should not be, meaning it's open source and decentralized. The foundation is there to help to keep this system alive and be more successful, but it's not the only force in the ecosystem, and should definitely not be.
I agree it's not the only force, but it's the main force that controls the real funds, right? That's the foundation, the VRI.
Yeah, it's one of the main forces, let's say like this. But I mean, there are also big token holders. So at least in the past, I've witnessed how big token holders, big community members, essentially whales. Some other people would say how they also influence the community and how they funded different things. For example, the wiki, the initial wiki at the crowdfunding campaign, and other things. So yeah, there will be also, as I said earlier, there will be also token sales on Eternity, which will also create a way to fund projects, to fund companies, and I think this is very closely related to governance, or this discussion we are having here, since they will have also the same problems, and they will also need to make use of the tools which are working on Eternity already today.
Yeah, true. And we could set a precedent for them to use in the future. And Eric is telling me to elaborate on token holders exercising their vote rights. Okay, so I was at some point involved in a team, in a website that required people to register and to be active or to claim voting tokens every month. Those were based on, you had a level and you were given tokens according to your level, but it wasn't removing tokens from you because you had this level and using your level to vote. Let's say you had 1,000 tokens and you got 1,000 votes per month. You could use those tokens only that month, and you decide how to distribute them between the propositions you had that month, in such a way that the proposition that had the most votes was the one that was looked at in that precise month, in such a way that it didn't actually matter if you had more tokens than someone else, because it actually mattered that you were active in the community to claim your votes so you could use them. Again, I know this is really complicated, not something that you can do overnight, but it could be a solution to knowing how many active members we have, and to give the voting right to the active community members, and not people that had the tokens and forgot about them, or someone that's not really participating in the community and knowing what's going on.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea, and I think Superhero will be a good platform for community members to show how they think, to collect followers, to collect voting or votes as well, or get voting power delegated to their accounts and build up reputation. I think this is really crucial. I've seen many blockchain projects where votes are kind of like completely anonymous, kind of like Bitcoin addresses voting with their Bitcoins without any reputation or any history or any opinion anything written attached to it, and I find this very, let's say, not very inviting. I think with Superhero we have now a base for a social platform, which of course is also being used or will be used for voting and also other social applications like funding or like video chats very soon. It's the start for Superhero. Or the start was just months ago, and there will be I hope much more activity very soon.
But also, as you say, it's very hard to make such a system overnight, and there's lots of things to consider. And in a central application, it's even more easy than in a decentral one. When we start to make these rules for getting these participation tokens or activate to find active members of the community and these kinds of things, when we make these rules in the blockchain, they can be gamed. And we did see in the example of Steemit, for example, that they were gamed to the bed, that there was some set of people that gamed these rules to get the maximum profit out of the system, upvoting themselves in circles and things like this to make any outside party not being able to claim part of the rewards that were given out there. And when we make these rules, we have to be very careful about these kinds of things as well. I think that's what's keeping us back right now to make this quickly, and we start to make the tools that we have right now, the voting system, Superhero, the Superhero League right now, where we get into conversations. I don't know, invite community members like you and Josh to give their opinion freely, and at some point we can make a system out of it.
The only issue I see with the delegation system is that once you delegate, it stays with that person forever, and they can use the voting power regardless of anything else.
In the voting system that we have right now, you can revoke the delegation at any point of time. So if you're not happy with the decisions that your delegate is doing, you can revoke. For past decisions, it will stay the same. For polls that have closed, for polls in the future, it will change. And for certain polls, if you're just with one opinion unhappy, you can always override. Your own vote is counted over your delegation.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I like that. But my point was, if someone delegates and then hides or just cold storage their tokens, there's no way for him to cancel or modify or revoke until he actually goes as part of the community and revokes it themselves.
Yes, of course. But what you can do easily with this is you can make a delegation system. So, for example, I have two accounts, one on my cold storage, one in my active using wallet, and I delegate all my cold storage to the active wallet, and then with the active wallet I can participate in voting actively. If I delegate this to another account that, for example, I trust Yanni more with decisions on Eternity than myself, I delegate to him in this order, so I can make this two-level of delegation, and then I can always, without touching my cold storage, have the power of my delegation at hand and make active decisions in polls or change my delegation actively.
Okay.
Just as
Josh, you're very silent, and I have the feeling that you have a lot of things to say. Please go ahead.
I just have a question. So given that the voting is complex and there can be, like, say, a three-way vote, would we be able to make a rule with the start of the vote that if there's a three-way vote and none of the options overtake, say, 51%, then we could have a second vote where the two options go head-to-head, the two most popular options go one-to-head? Could we do something flexible like that?
So technically, yes, because right now the votes are getting created by humans, and if you propose a vote, you can say this in your forum thread and say, this is how I want my vote to happen. People can agree with that and make a secondary vote. But also the current polling system is based in smart contracts in Eternity. And you can, for example, make a system out of this to make a two-stage voting in smart contracts as a developer. Things like this are possible as well. So both the human way and an automated way is doable.
Is there anything planned for exposition?
Cool.
Like, what if I forget to go into the forum and I want to know what's happening, what can I vote on, what's going on, if there's anything new? Is there going to be anything in the wallet maybe? Some information that pops up and tells you there's a new voting in the governance app, you should go see that?
You can always go to hero.com and all the vote. Eric actually posted 2 votes, 16 and 20, regarding things that we have discussed here. That is always active, and it's one place that you can find everything there.
I think there's a few places, so you can go to the governance app and see what polls are there in the top section, where we try to rank them by importance or by the sections that you, I think, most stake and newest and closing soon are there for you to explore. Maybe people will also post votes in superhero.com and tip them, or tip their creators, for example, to promote them on Superhero and make them up there. And I think if there's a very big poll that also, I mean, currently superhero.com is centrally run, and if the team behind sees this poll is very important for the Eternity community, we can actively promote this, or anybody can actively promote things in the Telegram group or in AE No. The team can put it in a banner on the top as they did with the BRI. They were not forced to do so, but they did on themselves as they think it was important in the Eternity decision making.
That's why I think all the votes should be a month long, just so people can check once a month and see all the votes.
Can votes not be
if they
like
don't
pushed
be
to the
too
app
active
or just to alert people that there are actual votes, just to in a way force some community, because we need to get the AE community active and get everyone involved, and half of the people are asleep half the time. So unfortunately we need to maybe, I don't know, push it to the base app or push it to the superhero app where you get a pop-up, there's a new vote, what it's about.
Yes, so first replying to Josh, I think votes should be rather longer than shorter. I think 1 month is the minimum for important decisions, maybe even longer, because you need to form an opinion about it. Maybe your opinion changes with the discussion going on about it. And until it closes, you can always change your opinion in the current polling system. But maybe for some small things where you just want to get a quick opinion, also it should be allowed to make just a few days or 2 weeks of polling time. That's up to the creator to decide the importance of a discussion and time for people to be able to participate. And regarding to the other question, we can implement a lot of technical things to call people to action to participate in votes. Currently, we have the system out there and want to see how people behave using it. And then the community can go ahead and promote polls in Telegram or their WeChat group or the forum, for example, and make active this discussion there. And if we see the need to develop technical features to support promotion of polls, I mean, at some point we can go ahead and make this a more pushing system and call to action with notifications or things like this. It's always possible if we see the need. Or, I mean, if there's a poll, like this goes to Meta, if there's a poll about changing the governance app or the polling app to promote more actively certain polls, for example, if it reaches a 2% total stake threshold to send a notification, and this gets funded somehow, or some developers proposes a pull request to our open source repository, we will definitely consider things like this.
I think that's important to have a threshold because, you know, I could make 10 votes, 10 polls today and spam people. So if there's a threshold, that would be good.
Yes. Also, talking about spamming in the governance system right now, everybody can create a poll. There can be thousands of polls all of a sudden because you can automate the thing, and there's no, you have to place no collateral in Eternity tokens in order to make a poll, and there's no fee except for the usual transaction fees. So we try currently to rank the polls by some metrics, and of course this can be gamed, but we can always change it and adjust to certain spamming things.
Yeah, and also talking about participation, of course, voting is important, and having such notifications could improve it. But we can't forget that it's not the only thing. I mean, it's also important for people to create and review proposals. But we have a big advantage here that people that create meaningful proposals can be tipped too in Superhero. So we might find like an incentive for people to participate not only by voting, but by working on meaningful proposals and others to review them. And I think this is like, we all know that the main trade-off of one of the main trade-off of on-chain governance is participation, not only in voting, but in creating. But I think we are having the foundations to overcome these problems.
Yes,
I really like where this is going.
Cool.
Also, I think all of these discussions should be a call to action for developers to make pull requests and change the system that way, for miners and exchanges to participate more actively in these decisions as they are stakeholders. For very active community members as you are, I think you're always heard, and everybody like from our team knows you, and we consider your opinions as you're vocal about them, and this also helps, and everybody can do what you're doing. And at some point, we have this discussion here at the Superhero League or in another form, and build the future that way.
Yeah, talking about that, is anyone else in the audience who has a question or wants to drop a comment, please?
Well, I always have a question or an opinion, but anyway, I posted a forum about 2 weeks ago where I said we need to have like a brainstorming session. It's not a vote, it's not something that has to be implemented, but to try and get the community involved, we need to just have a brainstorming box somewhere where people put in their opinions, their suggestions, their ways to make Eternity better. And unfortunately, it's difficult to get the Eternity community involved. Everyone's quiet, nobody comments, and I don't know how to force the issue, but we need more community involvement, and that's all I want really. And if we, in the Superhero app, if we make a upvote, downvote tip box where people can just go and put their suggestions, if somebody likes it, can tip or upvote or downvote or ignore, because we need to get the whole community involved to grow the whole project. But at the moment, most people are silent, and there's a handful of people really saying anything on anything.
Sadly, it's like that.
This is why, also a reason why we have this year going, the Superhero League. I think, it's a really good place to discuss such things and also kickstart more discussions even, and eventually votes, and then of course funding those things. Excuse me, there's probably some wind here, and I totally agree that would be great to have more community activity. Can't be forced though. So yeah, if you have more ideas how to get more people more active and off of exchanges and into the real crypto thing, this would be great to listen or discuss with you.
I agree. Thanks.
I want to add something that's not specific to governance, but important because of the platform we're using. Guys, besides Eternity blockchain, which is actually a really nice product and I would really like it to see succeed, the superhero platform is one of the best things I've ever seen. Why is this not being advertised as such and aggressively advertised?
Actually, sorry, I wanted to hear this from somebody. Even though the product is extremely good, you compare it with any other blockchain software. It's stable. It has all the features which is required for enterprise or any application to work on. So I want to actually know why people don't know about it and yet. I mean, it should have been publicized much more than what it is right now. Honestly, this is honest intention, not saying that it is bad or good.
Yeah, thanks. Great to hear that that you like the products. Yeah, I agree. It would be awesome to have more publicity. Unfortunately, it's not so easy. Meaning, we've tried lots of different things, but it's kind of hard to compete with other projects which spend most of their funding on marketing and business fluff, and we did it a different way. We spend it on technology. We've created superior technology, and now it's, I think, time that the community or the people, the markets warm up again and really start appreciating more the great technology which we have developed. Thanks for your opinion.
Thank you, Anne.
Yes, I think it's really nice to hear your opinion on this, and not only that we are in love with superhero from the superhero team side. Users are going to get the word out. You know, people need to experiment, to go there, to tell other people. I was reading Kryztoval telling that he was going to write an article. So that would be really interesting. Share on your regular social media about this being available. You can all be very helpful in that, and we of course are going to continue communication. But this is a personal opinion. When people, I see that when people start using it, they see the real power, and they are the ones that are going to shape the use of the superhero platform. But it's really good. It's really working, and all of you here can be by making polls in the voting part. By the Superhero League is going to be is there as well right now. So even with all this debate regarding community, I think that we are going places, gathering the community here in the league, in the forum. But it's like, you know, an ant's job to do now. A lot of amount of work to be done, but we're getting there.
Yeah, and also maybe this is a personal opinion, but I would be, as a user, strange if I see in Facebook sponsored content of superhero. I mean, this is not the philosophy. I mean, when you put publicity in the equation, then tracking happens, invasions of privacy happens. If you think about it, Superhero is not the only platform that allows to tip people, but that is publicity free. And that has a lot to do, because as long as you have publicity or you are like fighting for the attention of a user, then all the temptations about violating, raping privacy and intruding privacy arise. So it's a way, okay, let's take Brave. Okay, you can tip, but Brave always have and is taking and is fighting for the attention because they have their own network of advertisers. So the important thing here is that we as users are only together with the content creators we love. There is no external interference trying to get us buy something or something. And I think this is like, in my opinion, or just for me and my way of perceiving Superhero, this is very important. Publicity is doing a big harm to internet.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy publicity, and you can definitely pump up the value of a coin quite easily with buying publicity and spending most of your funding on publicity, but this will really fast as well be over again. We have chosen more the long-term approach to focus really on the technology, on creating great products, and now it's really word of mouth which needs to be happening, meaning exponential growth can only take place in case people start talking about this to their friends and to their colleagues and on social media and on wherever else talks are happening. And we need all your help, or everybody is required to help to make this, I think, a success. And I think we are still on a good path though, and from all the projects which got funded in 2017, many of them are not anymore alive. We are still alive, and technology is doing really good. And I think with Superhero, I think we have entered a new era of social consumer apps or dApps or whatever you want to call them, applications. And I'm looking forward to see really way more apps on Superhero platform. And also want to mention that Superhero is open source and can be also forked and applied to any other area. For example, gaming, or for example, some other specific industry to create a more use for the platform and for eternity.
Yeah, thanks for the forum. I really like participating in this thing. I would really join again if I'm invited.
Does anyone have any question or comment?
I just want to say as well, thanks. It was enlightening and I enjoyed it, and I would most definitely join it. And we need to preach to the people outside, because we all know AE is good, and at the moment we preaching to the choir because we preaching to ourselves who are already fans of AE. So we need to preach to people who don't know. But thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for joining the discussion. I think it's really enlightening for everyone. Please go to Superhero, use it. I always insist on this. It's really great. Use the voting app. There are interesting polls by Eric regarding topics that we addressed today. So we hope to see you next Superhero League. Alex, anything you want to say?
Yes, thank you. I'm just so honored to be hosting these events with all of you guys in the charity community and bringing up Superhero as a way to rebuild the internet, because I really think it's needed. I mean, the internet, how is it now? Even the inventor of the internet is scared and aware of how his invent has been and is working in another one. So I guess with all of our help and our support, we will get to a more fair internet that is really, really needed. So thanks a lot, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Piero. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Kryztoval. See you all in the next edition. So be ready, and social media will be sharing the topic.
And see you in Superhero.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.